Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing great today. So, we've got something really interesting to talk about. The brand new Black Myth Wukong update that just dropped, version 1.00.0119. Yeah, that's the one that quietly started rolling out, and everyone's been trying to figure out exactly what it does because, well, game science hasn't said much officially yet. But that's exactly why we're here to break down everything we know so far, what's likely going on behind the scenes, and what you can probably expect once this patch hits your platform. Alright, let's start with what's been confirmed. Players on PlayStation, mainly in the Asia region, began noticing the update rolling out first. It wasn't like a big, flashy patch with cinematic teasers or a developer livestream, it kind of just appeared. The file size isn't massive, so right away, that tells you it's not a new content drop. It's not a DLC or a huge expansion. Instead, this looks like one of those subtle but important updates that keep a game healthy. You know, those updates that fix the annoying crashes, smooth out the frame pacing, and maybe tweak a few quest bugs that were messing up progress. What's interesting is that this update follows the same pattern we've seen from game science before. If you've been following the game since launch, they've been really consistent with these kinds of stability and quality of life patches. They don't always announce them right away. Sometimes the community spots them before the official patch notes go live. And that's exactly what happened here. People saw the version number pop up in regional stores, some even on PSN tracking sites, and suddenly everyone was like, wait, what's this new update? It's that kind of stealth drop that gets the community curious because you can tell something's changed, even if the devs haven't said exactly what. Now, here's where things get a little speculative, but still grounded in what we know. Typically, when developers roll out an update like this without a big announcement, it means they're addressing back-end stability or optimizing performance on specific platforms. Think of it as the tuning phase after a major release cycle. By now, Wukong's been out for a while, and while it's been praised for its visuals and combat, there have also been consistent reports of performance dips, especially on consoles. On PC, people have seen occasional stutters when ray tracing is enabled or small issues tied to FSR settings. On PS5 and Xbox, some users have reported minor crashes, weird shadow glitches, and a few quest triggers that didn't behave as intended. So this update likely targets that group of problems. The timing is also worth paying attention to. Dropping a patch in early October makes sense. It's before the big holiday gaming window, and this is when developers like to stabilize their titles to make sure they're running clean before all the new players jump in during sales season. If you think about it, the last few months have been busy for game science. They've been fine-tuning their graphics systems, tweaking combat animations, and addressing community feedback about boss balancing and camera lock-ons. So this small patch might actually be part of that same continuous improvement plan. It's just that this one didn't come with a long list of bullet points. One thing that stands out is how the update is being described by those who have already downloaded it. Across a few early impressions, players are saying the game feels smoother. That's not a technical term, but we all know what that means. Less micro stutter, fewer abrupt drops in frame rate, and a general sense that the world loads and responds faster. Sometimes these updates tweak shader caching or background asset loading, and that can make a huge difference in how responsive the game feels. Especially in a game like Wukong, where timing and fluid combat are so key, even small latency or loading hiccups can mess up the rhythm. Now, since game science hasn't published the official patch notes yet, we have to look at what they've done before to get a sense of their priorities. In the last couple of updates, they fixed an issue with a specific boss where the AI could glitch out during a transformation phase. They also adjusted how certain particle effects behave during heavy attacks, which help reduce sudden frame dips. That's the kind of detail-oriented work they've been doing, and honestly, it's paying off. Each patch has made the game feel a little more polished. The combat feels tighter, the environments load more predictably, and the camera tracking during high-speed fights has gotten smoother. So, if we assume this new patch continues that trend, it's probably one of those invisible improvements that you feel more than you see. Of course, there's always that small part of the community that hopes every patch will secretly include new content. Maybe an extra boss, a new weapon, or a hidden questline. As of now, that doesn't look like the case here. There's no sign of any new files pointing to added missions or cutscenes. But it's not unreasonable to think that these smaller patches are laying the groundwork for bigger updates later. A lot of modern studios use these minor patches to prep the game for upcoming features or expansions, updating the back-end systems before flipping the switch on something larger. So this could very well be a quiet setup for what's next. If you're on PS5, you've probably noticed that checking for the update is simple. Just highlight the game icon, press the options button, and hit check for update. If it's available in your region, it'll start downloading automatically. On PC, Steam does this automatically, but if you want to confirm, you can check the game's properties and look under Updates or verify file integrity. Sometimes that extra verification helps if the update installs weirdly or if a file gets corrupted during the patching process. Now, let's talk about performance impressions. Even though the patch notes aren't out yet, some early testers on Reddit and gaming forums have said that load times seem slightly improved. On PS5, that could mean faster SSD caching, and on PC, it might relate to improved streaming behavior. Another detail people noticed: audio syncing feels more stable during cutscenes. That's one of those small immersion fixes that can make a difference, especially in a cinematic heavy title like this. Remember how some cutscenes would occasionally desync a fraction of a second when big visual X triggered? That kind of thing is subtle but noticeable once you start paying attention. Beyond that, I think what's really cool here is how game science continues to polish this game even months after launch. It shows a real commitment to keeping Wukong running at its best. It's easy for developers to release a title, push a few hotfixes, and then move on to their next project. But game science seems to be taking a longer-term approach. They're fixing issues gradually, responding to feedback, and keeping performance solid across platforms. That's honestly the right move, because this game made a massive impression at launch. Its visuals and combat system were already industry level, but consistent refinement is what helps it stay relevant. And even though we don't have the official notes yet, the way this patch rolled out regionally first suggests that game science is still gathering live performance data before making the worldwide release official. That's common when devs are testing certain optimizations or stability fixes under different server and hardware conditions. Asia-first rollouts often act like soft launches for patches. Developers monitor crash logs and see if the changes behave as expected before pushing the update to the rest of the world. It's actually a really smart move, better than risking a broken update for everyone at once. If you've been following the community chatter, there's also some speculation that this patch might touch up certain UI or localization details. Some language packs were reported to have spacing issues or missing text in earlier builds. And given that game science is based in China, but the game's global fan base is huge, they've been steadily improving translation accuracy and cultural nuance in the text and voice lines. So even small updates can sometimes contain new localization adjustments that don't get mentioned in the patch summary, but definitely improve the experience for players who play in English, Spanish, or other languages. Now let's talk a bit about expectations going forward. Since this patch doesn't seem to introduce new gameplay features, it's fair to assume the next major milestone update could bring something bigger, maybe balance adjustments to enemies or some new accessibility settings. Players have been asking for more HUD customization, expanded control remapping, and better camera behavior in tight environments. Those kinds of changes typically come in larger updates, but a patch like this could be laying the groundwork for that by cleaning up the underlying systems. Something else to consider: this might also be a preparation patch for future DLC integration. Even though game science hasn't officially confirmed a DLC yet, the game's ending and lore definitely set up room for expansion. Smaller backend updates sometimes adjust content delivery pipelines, meaning they're updating the game's internal structure so they can more easily add new missions, areas, or bosses later. If that's what this patch is quietly doing, we might be seeing the early technical steps toward that next chapter of the game. So, where does that leave us as players? Honestly, this is one of those updates that reminds you how much love and maintenance goes into keeping a modern AAA game stable. You might not see flashy new attacks or fresh storylines, but what you're getting is smoother gameplay, fewer bugs, and better performance.